This episode of Powered by Women is brought to you in part by In Search of the New Compassionate Male. For more information, go to newcompassionatemale.com.
You've heard of steam-powered, horse-powered, and gas-powered. Rev your engines. And then there's solar-powered, man-powered, and the old electric. But get this, even though Dennis is directing this show is solely lunar, powered by women.
Hello, welcome to Powered by Women. My name is Diane Coll. I am your host of this show. Always happy to be here. And today we have a delightful and bold guest. That word always comes to mind when I think of our guest today. You know, we here at Powered by Women, we embrace women being unapologetic, being themselves, defining themselves. And our guest today is a shining example of all of this. And our guest today is Jessica It's All Good. I love her name. She is a very successful comedian, hailing from the South. And as her bio says, she has a loud personality, no shame, and not a lot of inhibitions. She has won many awards and accolades for her stand-up comedy and comedy specials just around the country, including where she took her special Memoirs of a Supermodel Princess Clown. She took that to Hollywood. And her most recent work is a race-related pandemic comedy special called We're All Chocolate. Now, We're All Chocolate was nominated in the mind-blowing comedy category in 2021 for Comedic Writing of the Year. She's done so much, absolutely so much, super creative. And this is a woman whose comedic legacy is using humor for positivity and change. Let's bring her on. Jessica, it's all good.
Hi, Diane.
Hello, Jessica.
How are you? So good to see you in the, I almost said in the flesh. What I meant to say was in the computer.
Yeah, I know. I know what you mean. We're kind of not quite three-dimensional here, but yeah. Yeah, so awesome to have you on the show. And, you know, okay, my first thing I'm really curious about is what drew you into comedy?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I did not plan on becoming a comedian. I didn't start off chasing that dream. As a child, I actually decided I wanted to be an actress. At the age of 12, that's when I knew this was the thing I'm going to do. I'm going to change the world with entertainment. And around 26 or 27, I got into clean improv, mostly for children, then started doing it for like family audiences. And then one day during that time frame, I went to my first college to give a speech. And during that speech, there was a lot of funny things happened as I talked about chasing the dream out here in Atlanta to be an actress. One of the kids and some of the staff, actually several kids and staff from the college, came up and said, you should be a stand-up comedian, because we felt like we were listening to a live comedian, like a real life comedian. And then I said, okay.
And then you just hooked onto that dream.
Yes. And eventually it kind of pushed acting out the way. And so acting has become kind of the minor thing here, and comedy is the big thing.
Yeah. And they're so similar, aren't they?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
yeah. Because I mean, you strike me just as being naturally funny. Like you don't have to labor for a long time in terms of writing and crafting. I don't know. You just seem to be just a natural.
Thank you. And you're not the first to say that, so I guess you're right.
Yeah.
But yes, a lot does just naturally come to me.
Yeah. So what was it like doing stand-up for the first time?
A little, it was funny because I wasn't planning on doing it right away. There was a former radio host out here who was doing his own kind of coffee shop thing, and he had this show coming up. And when we were talking, I told him, I've been working on preparing to become a comedian, studying comedy. He said, I have a show. You want to do it? And I said, yeah. And then it hit me. Oh gosh, I'm going to have my first show in September. So I remember you see a lot of comedians have their book on stage or their notebook. So I wrote this stuff down, kind of went through it a little bit, and I brought it up there with me. I think I looked at it once, and then I
Yeah.
never looked at it again. So when you
Yeah.
see a lot of comedians on stage, even during like open mics where we're kind of practicing, I don't even bring it because it's a pointless prop on stage for me. So that mixed with the rush and then seeing that it was going well, I thought, oh, I think I can do this. This is going well. So
Yeah, yeah, and I haven't had a chance to tell you this yet, but I've dabbled in stand up, and I say
really,
and I say dabbled. you know, I've done, open mics, booked open mics, I've taken classes, and to me, that has been the most terrifying thing, yet the most fun thing I've ever done.
really.
Because it is like, isn't it just sort of like you're just walking this tightrope the
You know,
entire time, aren't
it's
you?
funny you mention that because a lot of people that ask me about comedy and say they've done it before, the big fear factor comes in. However, I am the complete opposite. My manager actually said, "Jessica, you are the one person I know who's most comfortable with a microphone in your hand." It's actually a bit of an addiction. I think one of the reasons it took over acting was because I had to wait so long to get on stage with acting. And comedy, I had instant opportunities constantly. So it just kind of got busy. And for me, once I'm on stage, it was like, yeah, even if I'm nervous about the outside elements, once I'm on stage, I am home. It's a little
Yeah.
yes.
And where do you think that comes from? I mean, I'm curious about that because I mean, I really do think you are a natural. You're just born that way, or where does that confidence come
You
from?
got me blushing over here. Oh my gosh. I think I'm going off camera. Look, make sure I don't. Let's see, where does that come from? Funny story, I guess a lot of people don't know, except maybe former students of mine, is that I was forced on stage at a very young age. We grew up in church, and it was the kind of church that my mother grew up being forced to sing herself as a child. So it was
Oh,
heredity. Now I've got 3 children, get on stage and sing. So I hated it. I'm like, why are we up here and all these people are looking at us and this sucks? And then I want to say around 8 is when it hit me that this is what it's going to be. So deal with it. And around 10 is when the church started giving me things to do so that every single week I was in front of everyone to the point that it was second nature. Then in high school, excuse me, in middle school, the realization that I had this talent came from a project I had to do for my English class. The stock
mm-hmm.
market show that changed my life, as I tell the kids. So
Ah,
something about that moment, just
yeah,
everything from directing and writing, because I wrote the play, I directed my friends, and I had the funniest pumpets in the whole class. So there was something from that moment at the age of 12 where I realized I can do this and do it well. So
yeah,
yeah, I guess I was born with it, but
yeah.
didn't know right away.
Yeah, it almost sounds like, it's like as kids, sometimes we're just thrown into the pool. It's like, okay, learn how to swim.
Yeah,
That's what that sounds like, just
yes.
get on stage and you just kind of
I
have to
gotta want to.
sweat it
Mom,
out.
I actually have comedy about that. My mother is in quite a bit of that. So
Oh.
and it's funny, it was all of us who were forced on stage. My older brother didn't really take to it. My younger brother did, and unfortunately, he was the attractive one out of all of us, apparently. So when he got on stage, all the girls were like, "Oh my gosh!" And then he became a Marine, and it kind of stole his personality. So now neither of my brothers like to be in
Mm,
front. So I'm the only one who's just like, "Hey, I'm on stage." So
really?
yeah.
Really? Do they root you on still? Or are
They
they,
do. My
yeah.
older brother actually comes to a lot of my shows in South Carolina when I go home. He's been to a
Mm,
few out here in Georgia. My younger brother, I think, has only been to one because of being a Marine, but he is like the one sole heckler that I've pretty much ever had. And because of that, I wrote an entire set about him that I didn't know was going to happen until that moment. So I have an entire thing about that, and that was the one time he was able to come. Hopefully
Yeah.
maybe down the road he'll come. But my parents and my older brother, their lives and schedule work out that they could come to more.
I guess your brother was just doing his job, right? To heckle.
I guess so.
Yeah.
He's a grown man,
Right.
military staff sergeant, but still
Right. Some things
annoying.
never
He's a
change.
dad.
They didn't push that out of him, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You know, I've wondered because I mean, it really sounds like your family is so involved and supportive in your work, and I've had this issue when I've done comedy bits, and I've talked with other comics as well. Is sometimes it's so personal. Have you ever found that like there's been some hesitation, you know, because maybe it is about a family member or somebody that you know what I mean? But you do
So
it anyway because that's your story and that's your
I
voice.
I realize I do believe in exploiting my family for money. Bills are real. I promised my husband I'd help him pay, even though he doesn't require it. It's in me, so I'm like, listen, I've got to do what I got to do. And some of the best stuff comes from the family. Obviously, there are some more personal things that you don't want to talk about. Then there are things that I really, really want to talk about, but the family's like, don't you talk about that. And so,
Yeah,
one of
yeah.
them I promised my mom I wouldn't, but because of a moment, when my mom comes to my show, she actually gets involved, even when I tell her not to. So it becomes a thing every time. And so one day I accidentally talked about one of the one things I said I wouldn't talk about, which was her driving, which is
Uh-huh.
horrible, but
Uh-huh.
great material. And when I tell you it was a flawless set that just came out of that moment. So after the show, I'm like, look, mom, they loved it, and you seem to be okay with it. When I'm famous, I'll break it off. But listen, the world needs to know about this.
And then was she fine with it?
She laughed at my dad. Oh my God, my dad. It's hard to get him to laugh, but I have the magic secret. You can see him dying in the background. I think my brother was actually at that performance too, my older brother. So the whole family's laughing. Everyone's loving it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I joke about my family a lot. I joke about my marriage a lot, but it's all in good nature. And I've always
Yeah.
kind of been one who didn't really care that much. Like I get that people are private. I am private more than people realize, but I
Mhm.
also believe that we're all kind of going through a lot of similar things here in life. Why do we need to
Mhm.
hide it? It's not that serious and no one really cares anyway. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I have found that if I turn a joke from something that was very painful and it feels very vulnerable, I find just, you know, then turning that into a bit, people relate,
oh,
you
they
know?
do. They
Yeah.
really do. It comes from the heart. They come up and tell you about the same similar situation that happened in their life. And I have many stories that I'm realizing came from a painful place. If I talk about a breakup, do know I was crying about somebody. And now if any of my exes are watching this, I might have cried about you, except for that one, and you know who you are. But
Uh-huh.
it's
Right.
one of those
Right.
things that I mean, snotty, ugly tears. I have a very
Yeah.
ugly cry, but
Yeah.
that moment ended up being so funny down the road. I'm thinking, oh, I can't believe I even cried over this guy, especially now that I've got the best guy. All of you suck, but this
You're
one,
right, you're right. All those guys who sucked, you know, it's like it was like this trail of
yeah. And there is one who actually
losers.
didn't suck. It's just we weren't right for each other, and I didn't realize it until
Yeah,
later. So that one is like the one ex that I'm cool with. We still
yeah.
chat from time to time. He's met the husband. I met his girlfriend that I think he's with. Either way, great
Mhm.
people in that area, but then all the other exes, they can eat rocks.
Yeah, right. And isn't it so empowering as a comic when you can take those painful moments and just, you know, it's like it transforms, doesn't it, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
You think about
yeah,
the fact that this thing that broke me, I mean, driving through red lights in tears, excuse me, green lights, waiting at you know what I mean.
I do.
And now I'm getting a paycheck because I exploited this part of my life. It's great. Even things that I was maybe a little bit ashamed about back in the day, now I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's not that serious. We need to learn to laugh. Life
Yeah.
is short."
It really just lightens everything, you know, it really does. And yeah, I am so interested because I mean, your comedy philosophy is positivity.
Yes.
and change. And I would just love to hear you talk more about that and where that comes from.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll just go ahead and put the clean out there first because it's clean and positivity. Um, I am a former theater drama teacher, did a lot of after school programs, a lot of projects with and mostly young people. And so when you're teaching all these kids that want to follow you and see you actively chasing your dreams, it
Hmm.
inspires them. So if my kids look me
Yeah.
on YouTube, I don't want them to see that I compromise in something I said I wouldn't compromise in.
Mm.
Second, I did tell you about the religious background that I grew up in. And in my religious beliefs, I think I'm okay. But then if you ask my parents, they might think I'm going to hell, and I'm still a little bit scared of them even at this old age. So I think about if my family comes to this show, I want to still represent my
Mm.
family in the right way. And this is a
Yeah.
gift. This is I look at how many times it shouldn't have gone great and it did. I'm like, yeah, this is clearly a gift. So when you have
Wow.
something like that, you want to put that back into the world in a way that says I'm appreciative towards this. So
Mm.
that's kind of my thing that I push out in the universe when it comes to the clean. And trust me, I if I wanted to, I could be very dirty, and it would still be in a positive, uppity, buppity way. And
Right.
then it's just, and I think that's why it would be so funny because when my friends who know me well hear these stories, they're like, "Oh my god, why don't you put that in your comedy?" I'm like, "Because I'm a clean comedian, duh." And
Yeah.
then my parents will find out. So yeah. And then when it comes to
Yeah.
positivity, so when I discovered that I was extremely entertaining, it was this moment in seventh grade at the age of 12. I realized that I one of the big things that a lot of people might not realize is I was considered ugly, which by the way, those compliments y'all
Mm.
gave me before this started, thank you, because I was the ugly girl growing up all the way through 12th grade. And
That's
so
hard to imagine. That truly is hard to imagine.
thank you. And I'm still a little bit of an ugly girl in my heart. I'm working good. I'm working good. So so that my whole life was full of children constantly picking on me. And
Mm.
when you think of comedians, a lot of comedians, you think of comedians making fun of you when you're in a show. I have had so many shows where people would sit like all the way in the back, the whole front row would be empty because everyone's scared of the comedian. And when I started comedy,
Yeah.
I thought about the things that people said. First of all, I'm a woman. It's a male dominated career. So there's a
Yes.
lot of men talking about their exes that they're mad at. They're particularly the straight men who's mad at their female exes are like really angry. So you don't even get the term woman or lady when it comes to women. They're just really bad words people use to describe women. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
strike one. I'm black. And when it comes to race jokes, a lot of people have a lot of things to say about black people. So
Mm.
double hitter. And I remember
Yeah.
thinking, I think I can do this, keep it clean, not hurt anyone's feelings, and still be
Mm.
funny because I never wanted to make people feel bad the way they made me feel bad. In fact, I
Mm.
remember one boy making horrible fun of me, thinking I was ugly. And the song You Are So Beautiful to Me? I
Yeah.
hated that song because this kid in fourth grade decided he wanted to get down on one knee and sing it to me, but exchange beautiful for ugly. And while I was sitting there trying not to cry, I remember thinking,
Oh,
"You're ugly too."
man.
Like the dude was ugly. He was real ugly. And I'm like, why can't we just be ugly friends together? Like, why are you? And I didn't ever point out his ugliness because I know I'm not the only one who saw that. Okay. And I'm trying to think of people as beautiful. Sorry, hitting a nerve. Anyway, I digress.
That's what comedy that's like definitely what's the word I'm looking for? I'm struggling with words right now. It really gets to the heart, I think, of where comedy becomes that craft and that
Yeah.
healing process.
And
Yeah, no,
honestly,
keep going.
I think with what you're saying, a lot of things that I'm saying, a lot of people feel have said to others. They just don't want to say it out loud in public. I will.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do try to be very considerate of the people around me. I try to be considerate of I also, what some people are starting to maybe realize is I don't do politics in my comedy either. Because at the end of the day, someone's going to be mad when the show's over. And I
mm,
have fans from all walks of life. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm very serious when I say I want, if at all possible, every single person or at least 99% of the crowd to leave with something that made them feel good. Because I don't want to make anyone
Mm.
feel bad even when people made me feel bad in the past, it was hard for me to turn around and make them feel bad as well. So all
Wow.
this is from when I was a child, and I realized, oh, you can grow up and
Yeah.
still keep some of that stuff from your childhood. So
That says so much about you. It truly does. Because someone else could take all that pain and go, well, I'm going to inflict that on everybody. And,
there's some
you
angry
were
people
not
out there.
that way. Oh my God. Yeah. 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 Wow. I was wondering about that. And that's coming from such a deep, beautiful place.
Thank you. Funny
Yeah.
story, since we're getting deep. So, I when I say I hated that song, I utterly hated that song. So I'm
Mm.
married now, and my husband, one day, I guess he had really messed up with something, and I was not happy with him. So he can't sing. Keep in mind, my husband cannot sing to save his life. Even
Uh-huh.
when he's trying to tell me about a song, he will talk the lyrics, and I have to figure out what's going on. Well, one day he like pulled up that song on YouTube and
Mm.
came into the room and just started like massaging like my feet or shoulders. I can't remember, but whatever he was doing while he was playing this in the background, I just started crying, like bawling. It was
Mm.
a very intimate moment that obviously some people wouldn't talk about, but obviously I'm going to at some point. But
Yeah.
I want to say that I was maybe 32 or 33 when this happened. So
Yeah.
from fourth grade, 9 years old, up until this point in my life, that song still hit a hard nerve with me. And so it wasn't until this man who, when I say, thinks I'm beautiful in the way that, you know how Beyonce says, I woke up like this. Well, that
Mhm.
song is alive for most of us. And I am one of those people. It even right now, it took something to get to this here. Okay. But for him to express how beautiful he thinks I am in this moment, just from this
Oh,
massage with this song that does something to me, it broke that awful thing inside of me,
yes.
and
Yeah.
it changed my life. And I realized that number one,
Yeah.
I was still holding on to this thing that I felt about, and number two, that this man really loves me. And
Oh,
no matter what thinks I'm beautiful, even when I don't think I'm beautiful. And
oh man.
people
Yeah.
need that. I needed that. And I actually, the reason it's so easy to talk about that now, I actually used that story to give a speech one day. Although I'm a comedian, I do have a history of public speaking. And someone asked me to speak to the town of Dahlonega about race back when things were really, really interesting over these last couple of years. I think it was.
Mhm.
So I went and gave a speech to this town and was able to use that story in a way to
Mm.
kind of tie in race, if you will.
Mhm. Wow. I mean, I'm so happy that you got that healing,
Thank you.
it's so true. I think that, when someone hurts us that deeply, it's sort of, and Renee Yaworsky and I were talking about this on an episode in season one, where it really does take whoever hurt you deeply, it takes perhaps another person of that same gender to then heal.
Interesting. That's a very interesting point, actually. And you
Yeah.
know, when you mention that, because what you got me thinking at this moment, um, there were definitely girls who thought I was ugly, but a lot of
Mm.
boys picked on me for being ugly. And the funny thing is, I don't think my dad realized how much I liked boys when I was a kid, because it wasn't until like high school where he's like, "You like boys?" I'm like, yeah, since I was 5." Like, seriously.
Uh-huh.
So when you are a heterosexual individual and the opposite sex makes you think that you're not worth it and you're ugly, it definitely can do something to you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
which the funny thing is, I think having ugly girl syndrome, it made me really not care about certain things because I got to a point where I'm like, okay, look, I get it. I'm ugly. Can we move on now? And so that level, it kind of fueled confidence in a weird, crazy way, I guess.
That makes sense. It's like building from the inside versus the
Mhm.
outside,
Yeah.
building up that core. Wow. You have such amazing stories.
Thank you, Diane.
Wow. And, I want to make sure we have time to talk about I mean, we're all chocolate. Let's talk about this.
Okay.
I would love to learn more about it. I saw that YouTube clip about Gary, right? Was it Gary,
Yes.
the little
Yes.
boy?
So funny thing, just for people who think that I do say it's a pandemic um, comedy special, because if you watch it, which I swear that DVD is gonna finally come out eventually, if you watch it and you see the audience, they're all wearing masks and everyone's spaced out. So it's a spaced out, more online audience, which means you're not feeling all of the big crowd participation, but it's there. And
Mm-hmm.
considering the times and what was happening in 2020, it's really connected to the time. But this comedy special has been a thing in the back of my mind for a long time. The
Mm-hmm.
story of the little boy Gary, whose real name is not Gary, but it does start with a G. That's kind of my little thing there.
Sure.
That story happened in 2009, and
Uh-huh.
I told someone that story, like I want to say 2015, and they said that needs to be a comedy special. So I was like, "You're right. I'm gonna do it one day." And so around that
Mm-hmm.
time, those two seeds started growing to something. And in 2018, my manager slash partner and I decided we were going to do this comedy special, and we were pushing for maybe 2019, early 2020. So we started doing all the footwork for real in 2018. Then
Mm-hmm.
2020 turned into what 2020 was. And
Yeah.
so at that time, I gave up. I'm like, well, I guess we'll wait till the lights come back on. And after
Mm-hmm.
the summer of 2020, I, like many people of color, especially Black people, went through some very harsh things. I've had racism, but that summer,
Yes.
everything, that whole year was just rough. And so as the year was going on, I started sharing things on Facebook. I try to keep my Facebook very, very positive, which is where that private thing comes in. People would not guess the things happening behind the scenes someday. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and just to give you an example, when I got back from Puerto Rico, I didn't post till I got back from Puerto Rico. No one knows my husband had a car accident when I was about to
Mm-hmm.
fly out to Puerto Rico, because I'm very
Mm-hmm.
serious, like totaled his car, and it was devastating. And it's like, I got to fly in a few hours. No, so I keep a lot of things. And when it comes to race, if I say a lot of things on race online, I try to keep it positive. But I start sharing stories of things that have happened to me over the years, because I don't know what it is, but I do have a very diverse fan base. And sometimes I feel like my more, as I said, and we're all chocolate, not so brown friends and not so dark chocolate situations seem to think, oh, Jessica is what, she's Black, she's fine. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no.
Mm.
Like many
Uh-huh.
Black people, you learn to walk the walk, talk the talk. Like many Black people, you learn to hide and bury things
Mhm.
inside and save that for certain situations. So I wanted
Mm.
all my non-Black friends to see certain racial things that have happened to me, things that have had me broken, painfully broken because of race. So you can see, yes, I might come
Yes.
off as a very happy Black woman, but the pain that you worked so
Yeah.
hard to avoid out in public, if you will,
Yeah.
people need to see that. And so many people were
Yes.
responding to these Facebook posts, which were kind of my little way of making my statement in this time where there's a lot of
Mhm.
loudness going on, more quietness for me. So then it
Mm.
hit me one day. I'm like, I need to do this show and I need to do it now. Like, I don't need to wait until we can finally go back outside again. So that's how We're All Chocolate became a pandemic comedy special.
Yeah.
And it's a very funny special, even for the stories that might be scary or painful. It's actually a very funny special, because the goal was, when a lot of people talk about race on stage, it's negative. I wanted to do a positive spin on it, and I did.
Mhm. Mhm. And is this something you could share, like an overall, maybe arc of the special? Is this something that you could share, or did you want to wait till it comes out
Oh no, so the special came out in 2020, and the reason
on
it was
DVD? I'm
seen all
sorry.
on, no, no, yes, yes. It's just that I promised people a DVD, but some people don't know I'm a bit of a procrastinator. And funny thing is, once things start picking back up towards the end of 2020, I think the pandemic helped my career a little bit, because a lot has happened. And it's very
Yeah.
difficult to get certain things going when you're doing so many other things. So I want to put the DVD out, but it is also a show. We're actually trying to start pushing it to colleges with my
Mhm.
with the company I do college shows with. Um and I definitely want to do it more and again. But it was a
Yeah.
nice little moment in time back in November 2020, and one day it's not done. It's not done. It's just on, I guess, pause right now. But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I have the videos in this desk right now that I,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And overall, what do you want audiences to get from We're All Chocolate?
Love. Um,
Mm.
everyone loves chocolate. Little secret, not me.
Oh,
And it's funny because I've had people bring me like candy in the middle of comedy shows. I don't even
I
like
bet.
candy. So there's certain things I like, right? But I like almond joy. That's actually my husband hates it. Most people are like, yeah. I'm like, yeah. So there are certain chocolates that I like, but not
Hmm.
a lot at all. I'm very picky. But most people like chocolate and they associate that with something they love, something that's a good thing, that's a treat. But when we talk about race is a normal thing in this country, not every country, but race it's not that serious at the end of the day, but it is, but it's not, but it is. So
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
see
Hmm.
race and then they put that over everything. Even our marriage, we can't even be a husband and wife. We're a black person and a white person before we're a
Hmm.
husband and a wife in many people's eyes. So I feel like my life is full of diversity and people that I love from all walks of life. And it is a beautiful life because I don't hold myself to this little rule book of race. And I want people to realize that you can really love everyone just the way you love chocolate, except you don't want to eat people because then it's cannibalism and that's illegal in this country.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you gotta walk
Yeah.
that line, be careful with that. But at the end of the day, I want people to understand that you can have a wonderful, happy, fulfilling life if you love everybody. Now there are some people
Hmm.
that I hate, and I'm working on that. But it's not a race thing, it's because of what they did to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a few
Yeah.
exes, a few former friends, a few people that cuss me out in traffic. But we're not talking about that right now. We're
Right.
focusing on just loving
Right.
people because
Yeah.
we're people.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I really believe that we have so much more in common than we do different, and there are differences,
Yeah,
and
and
to
it's okay.
embrace those differences, right, it is okay. It's like, life would be boring otherwise, right?
Yes. And if you have noticed, I'm not a very boring person. I'm not bored at all. It's probably because I have a lot of fun. Like all these people that try to shut their lives down from the rest of the world because they're scared. Most people are good. Um, we all have something that's not good inside of us, but I think we
Mhm.
all have some level of good, some more than others. But if you don't take the opportunity to figure it out, you won't know. So we're all chocolate.
Yeah, I
Even
know. I love that. I love that.
thank
I guess
you.
I'm white chocolate, right? Which I like in little doses.
Yes, yes. For me, we're all chocolate, but preferably almond joy, Miss Sugar or Snickers. Please, please don't
Yeah.
send me anything like what's that one? There's one I hate. Don't mint chocolate. I do talk about that being a disgrace in the show. I think that is an absolute disgrace to chocolate, to candy. And as I'm talking, I realize you might be one of those people who like mint chocolate.
I love mint chocolate.
Yeah, Diane, I don't
Oh
think
my
we could be
goodness.
friends. I'm just joking.
But we can still love each other, right?
Yes. I will say when I said that in the show, I got a lot of people got riled up. That was so funny. I don't get it. My husband and I, that is one thing we can really agree on. And but my mother, she loves mint chocolate. She actually force fed it to me several times as a kid, which might be why I don't like it. I don't know. It's not like eat this chocolate. It's just my mom had a tendency to put things in your mouth before you had time to figure out what was happening. You just walk in the door, kids, eat this. What?
Oh,
Ah,
no.
why is chocolate and mint together? It's wrong. So
Eat this now, get on stage.
So whenever I talk about things like mint chocolate and grits, two things I think are a disgrace to food, people get
Uh-huh.
very upset. But I also like to get things started in my shows, so that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, yeah, to be a little evocative, right? At the same
Yes,
time.
you got to
Oh,
get the party started with a little bit of controversy.
yeah. Compelling, right? That's the word I was
Yes,
trying to think of. Oh, you come from such a beautiful place.
thank
You,
you,
you do, and
thank you.
beautiful inside and out, Jessica.
I really appreciate that, Diane. Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, is there anything else you wanted to say about Oral Chocolate? Anything?
Um, We're All Chocolate, I do think is a show that will continue to grow. For me, my comedy, because it's always moving with me, I add things, and I will retire things. Like I still have single person jokes that are still there, but there are some that just don't work anymore because I'm so married. But just like that, there are stories and things that come to mind or that happen that I have to share. So I think I try to keep things kind of revolving and moving and going and not staying in the same
Mhm.
place while there. And I get that there are comedians who will have the same thing forever. That's okay. But for me, that's just not a thing. And We're All Chocolate is hitting on something that needs to be talked about and talked about a
Yes.
lot when it comes to
Yes.
race. So We're All Chocolate isn't going anywhere. Even when I'm not doing the full comedy special, We're All Chocolate stories and jokes can pop into my sets as I'm doing comedy in different places. So I hope to do much bigger things with it one of these days. But I can
Yeah.
say I have hit the goal to have that comedy special. And thanks to this pandemic, it was seen all over the country and a little bit outside of the country too.
Oh, really? Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, and I agree. The topic of race, that needs to continue. And I just love how you are infusing love
Thank you.
into that conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate that feedback.
Mm, yeah. I admire you so much, and I can't wait to see this.
Well, it's coming out on DVD eventually.
Yes, right. Yes, eventually. It will. Is it available on YouTube or anything for people
Um,
to maybe check out?
the 2016 story, the video that you saw, that was
Mhm.
2016, and that's back when I used to have my maiden name included in my stage name here. So if anyone looks for that, just look for We're All Chocolate, and you will find that that story about Gary, that was the seed that planted the whole thing.
Yeah.
And when this goes as far as I hope it'll go, I that will be the one story that will always be consistent because it's where everything is the
Wow.
birth of this. So
Yeah, it's a sweet story.
thank you.
No pun intended, but
I missed it. It went, that happens to me a lot. So much people joke with me, and I'm just like, "What? Are I missing that? Like, Jessica, you're a comedian." I'm like, "Well, things can go over my head too. It's not that big."
yeah. Yeah. Oh my good. Oh man, I love where our conversation has gone. I
You.
really do, and I feel like we even could have gone deeper and deeper, but you know what? We're running out of time.
That happens with me a lot.
Oh, but it's all good
It is
because
all good. I caught that one.
do you have any parting words of advice? Let's say there's a 12-year-old girl watching this show or listening to this show. What do you want to say to her?
You can start planning your dreams now.
Mm, yeah. Anything's possible with that, isn't that?
Yes, and actually, that is what I tell 12-year-olds all the
Yeah.
time when I get to speak with young people. I made a big decision. A lot changed along the way. The road will not be what you think. The journey will not be what you think. But at the age of
Mm.
12, I decided I am going to make the entire world laugh. Whether I get famous, or just a little bit of famous, as some people apparently think I am, because apparently they're out there. I'm like, oh, really? Well, my bank account doesn't say that, and I haven't been on the Hollywood red carpet yet. But when that happens, then I'll know. In the
Yeah.
meantime, the journey is to be enjoyed, and you can start as young as you want to and as old as you want to. For anyone watching who is not a child and thinking of making a move, chase it, go get it. Somehow you'll get there, even if it changes a little bit along the way. You'll get there.
Yes. Oh, beautiful. Yes. Thank you so much, Jessica. This was
No
such a blast.
problem. I'm
Oh man.
so glad you enjoyed it. I enjoyed speaking with you today. This was wonderful.
Yes, and thank you for sharing so much. Just I'm very moved and inspired by you.
Thank you. And it is an honor to be here. So thank you.
Ah, thank you so much, Jessica. Oh, okay. I could have talked to Jessica for another 2 hours. I seriously, there was so much Jessica, I think I'm going to want to have you back on the show. My goodness. Let us embrace how similar we are, and let us embrace our differences, because without our differences, life would be very boring, right? And love, love, love. Let's love each other. I find that to love is a lot easier than to hate. Hate takes up so much energy, and just kind of sucks the life out of you. But love feeds the soul, feeds the spirit, feeds everybody. And that's what I'm getting from my conversation with Jessica. It's all good. Okay, everybody. Wow. I want to thank Dennis Tardan, Renée Yaworsky, and Clay Boykin for this show. And I want to thank you, the audience, for continuing to watch, to listen. It means a lot to all of us. And Jessica, it's all good. Thank you again for sharing your beautiful messages, your beautiful self. And I look forward to seeing you all next time. Bye-bye.
This episode of Powered by Women has been brought to you in part by In Search of the New Compassionate Male. For more information, go to newcompassionatemale.com.